This is Charlie Tsiolis from Aftermath, and you're listening to Music Existence.
Joining me today is Kyriakos Tsiolis, better known as Charlie. And he and his band Aftermath are celebrating the 30th anniversary of their debut album, Eyes of Tomorrow. Welcome, Charlie. Thank you for being here, man.
Thank you for having me on your Music Existence show, Jake, and it's an honor to talk to you.
Yeah, now, when you think back to the creation of Eyes of Tomorrow, um, what sticks out to you about the quality of the album, whether stylistically or lyrically, that still resonates with you to this day?
Well, okay, stylistically, um, when I listen to it now, it's just I'm just amazed at the musicianship, like the and all the influences that are in there sprinkled throughout, which was basically a thrash metal band, you know what I mean? But it doesn't sound like it's a jazz part. We incorporated everything naturally, and it's just fascinating to hear how smoothly the transitions went. From one part being like an insane timing wise jazz part into flowing into a heavy metal riff and everything, and it's flawless that way, and lyrically um lyrically that album was more about seeing the future and realizing humanity's downfalls, like mainly how people get conned into doing things, like whether they join a cult or or a bully taking advantage of them in school. It's all like warnings about that kind of stuff, like because later on, where I'm at now, I'm writing lyrics about like globally, what's going on in the world and how the world's getting taken advantage of, or certain things people aren't aware of because they work all day and they don't have time to think at the end of the night, because they're busy with their lives and they don't know what's really going on, and so they're both, and plus it's part of a trilogy, because Eyes of Tomorrow, No Time to Waste. I mean, there is something wrong in No Time to Waste. The three albums we wrote are kind of like we called it a trilogy at the end of the third one, But again, that album came out. Eyes of Tomorrow came out in 1994, which was a terrible year to release a heavy metal album. Like I remember that year, Iron Maiden was playing the Vic Theater here in Chicago, and that only fits like not even 1,000 people, with Blaze Bailey. It was just bad times for metal. But originally, the songs were written in '88, '89, and we had a record deal with this company called Big Chief, and it was going to be put through Metal Blade Distribution. But then they went bankrupt when we got done with the album, so we had to pay the studio. It took us 4 years because we were young kids. We didn't really have jobs to get our masters back. Otherwise, it would have been, who knows what they would have done to the studio if we never paid for it. They probably would have erased it. So it was a struggle to get it out, and it took us 4 years to pay it off so we could put it out. Because originally it was supposed to be out like 1990, the latest, not 1994.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was looking back on that, and that's really, it's for one thing, it's good that you guys pulled through regardless of those circumstances. So yeah, so it was supposed to come out in 1990, and it's interesting that because those songs were written in, like you said, 88, 89, around the time that you were releasing demos. And um, interestingly enough, the song's themes of anxiety, of losing yourself and finding yourself, and all of that, that trajectory kind of ironically goes hand in hand with a lot of 90s themes, especially 1994, whether you see it or not.
No, I know what you mean. Yeah, because the '90s decade became, like, yeah, where everybody was, everything was about that. Yeah, I know what you mean. The lyrics later on fit the times, but, but, yeah, I never thought about it that way. And
Yeah, and
actually, when you think about it, the songs really, because we put out a demo in 1989. We had two demos. The 89 demo, Words That Echo Fear, were the songs for Minds of Tomorrow, 4 songs from it. But we didn't write them in 89. You know how it was then? Like, we probably wrote them in 87 and 88. In 89, we recorded it early in the year. So they're really late 80s songs. And when you really listen to them, they don't sound like they're late 80s songs. They don't sound like from the 80s. You know what I mean?
in a way, you were like, ironically, like ahead of your times.
Well, in a way, and I don't like claiming stuff like that unless I
Yeah,
can
yeah,
back
yeah.
it up. Unless I can back it up, but we could because see, we made a band when thrash metal was a baby. You
Right,
know,
right,
like I
right.
remember when I got the first Metallica album and the first Slayer, I could tell something new was starting, but it wasn't fully there because Metallica really like metal the fast songs, Hit the Lights, Metal Militia, and
The classics.
yeah, and then, but those were the ones that were fast and they sounded wow. This is
Yeah,
or Whiplash. Like
yeah.
when I heard
Whiplash.
Whiplash, I go, yeah, I go, man, that's a whole new thing. It's not the regular heavy metal that we wrote, but the whole album wasn't like that. You know, for Metallica, it wasn't all 10 Whiplashes. You know, like Rain and Blood from Slayer was pure thrash straight through. Like Metallica still had influences of classic metal. So did Slayer. So I was just daydreaming. I go, man, wouldn't it be cool if a band had just full on thrash, just fast like that? So luckily that I had the musicians that I knew from school and stuff, Ray and Steve, and we did it. We wrote 5 songs like that. We put out a demo, Killing the Future, and it was probably one of the earliest of thrashcore. When metal and hardcore blended, and it became a genre later on when DRI actually dubbed it thrashcore with their thrash with their crossover. Excuse me. We were calling it thrashcore, but it became crossover. You know
Because
what I
it
mean?
was like the hardcore punk plus the metal influence on it.
Yeah, yeah. Put it this way: like when we did our first show in Chicago, uh, kids were the people there started slam dancing and stuff and stage diving, right? And that was 85. The year before, no metal show had that going on. There wasn't anything around where metal kids were slam dancing. Punk rock kids were,
Right,
like
it was extremely kind of divisive because metalheads and punk rock kids turned their noses up against one another, and it wasn't until those guys joined forces that you
exactly.
saw the blending of crowds.
Yeah, and it was weird. You had to be there at the time to realize how crazy because punk rockers and metalheads weren't a united force. They didn't love each
Right.
other. So kids now, when you talk, I was talking to some younger kids not that long ago that are just getting into it, and they had no idea metalheads and punk. They thought it was always like that, like they
Right.
were always united. I go, no, man. And there was this
You
one
had
show,
skate
especially,
kids listening to metal eventually.
yeah. And in '88, no, I mean, with Crumbsuckers, we did a show from New York. They were a band from New York. It was popular in New York,
Yeah, yeah,
Crumbsuckers.
like the punk rock scene in New York was probably receptive to it.
Yeah, New York City hardcore. It's a big thing. And then we did a show with them in Detroit and Chicago with the Crumbsuckers. And that's when we realized, man, it's really blended now. Because we got pictures up on Facebook too. If you go on our album on the Facebook page, the
Hmm.
audience was literally, it was jam packed. It was like you could see who's on people's shoulders. There was a black girl with a mohawk. There were skinheads. They were like long hair. Well, actually, all the metal kids were further back watching the punk rockers go crazy, and it was the first time in anybody's lifetime here in Chicago, especially, where you seen mosh pit. There was like mohawks, skinheads, and long hairs all together. You know what I mean? Metalheads, and
It's
we got known
amazing.
for yeah, we got known for the being as even Kerrang magazine uh when they reviewed our demo Killing the Future, they said it's too damn fast. What are these kids thinking nowadays? It's crazy. And then Metal Forces actually loved it, so it was kind of funny. That was another big magazine, and we got known around the world for the speed. But then I just go, man, we've got enough of the speed on one demo. It felt like a lifetime, but it was not even a year. Then I go, let's slow it down and have thrash metal genre uh, incorporate Pink Floyd elements, jazz elements, and blah blah blah. All other kinds of music. But there was no name for it. There wasn't. It wasn't a. Now there's progressive technical thrash. I mean, at least I'm sure there were other bands around the country that were doing that at the same time, but nobody knew about it. We didn't know, there was no internet, so we didn't know. All I know is it sounded exciting, and and the players in my band, I know, they could do it because like our guitar player, Steve, used to give guitar lessons as a teenager uh, at a place called Tunes and Taps, and he had like 60 students, a real legitimate music place here, the big one, and lessons. Imagine how good you got to be there. And then he was in a wedding band called Weekend, and they were booked 2 years ahead of time, and they literally had to know the top 10 of every week. So every week, I remember he'd go to Rolling Stone, the record store, and buy whatever entered the new in the top 10 singles. One week it could be 10 new entry, or five, or it could be none. And I was thinking back then, wow, man. So I knew the musicianship was there. That guy could buy a new single of whatever song. It could be, back then, it could have been whatever song it was, whatever a big song. It could have been Beat It, or it could have been whatever, and he had to learn it. And so I go, man, and I said it to the guys, I go, let's experiment. Let's not, and in a weird way, I got burned out on just speed on one demo, and I refused to listen to that demo. I thought it was past us for 20 years because it was a cassette. So until the internet age where people put it online and you could burn it, and I wasn't computer savvy, like when it first came out, I go to my brother, he goes, Killing the Future is out on internet, you could burn it. I go, well, how do you do that? He goes, I went to take a shower. He was living with me at the time. I come out of the shower and there was a disc on the kitchen table. And I go, well, what's this disc, the CD? He goes, Killing It. I go, you just got it that quick? I didn't even know. And then I went in my car. I was driving someone. I put it on. I ended up loving it, and I ignored it for 20 years. You know what I mean? At that time, which is weird because we never played those songs. Once we went the progressive technical route, we didn't live. We weren't doing any of the early crossover thrashcore stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But since we reunited, we do both.
Yeah, and I wanted for you to speak more on those formative times. You were basically, when you started back in the mid 80s, you were part of the Chicago thrash scene. And in terms of, we talked about the blending of the two different musical scenes of hardcore punk and the metal guys. And was it easy to make friends and find band members within that scene back in the 80s?
Well, because when I wanted to form a band, it was a thrash band I wanted to form. So thrash, let's say, really became a genre
So that
that
you
year.
were like very, very adamant on specifically doing a
Yeah,
thrash thing.
yeah. Aftermath formed right away as a thrash band. There's nothing else. Thrash is what made me want to be. See, I grew up liking, as everybody my age, Kiss was my entry into music. I
Yeah,
thought,
and
wow, look at these.
Van Halen too, right?
Exact. There they are.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and Van Halen. But I never see myself like I could be David Lee Roth. I would never, as a front man, like move around like him and all that stuff. I seen them as something I loved. Like just let's say if you're a drag, uh, whatever, a race car fan, and everybody, because my niece is into it now. Everybody doesn't want to be a racer; they just like being a fan. But
Hmm.
then I remember I've heard when I first heard the first Metallica, and I already heard Motorhead and stuff, and I go, man, this seems like more like something I'd want as a band. That's the kind of band I'd want to be in, like something that was like street, like no dressing up, no nothing flashy, just like aggressive, and strong,
Jeans and
tough.
t-shirt kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. And then I go, but now I can relate to being in a band, not just being a fan, because like I said, with Van Halen and Kiss, man, I never said in my room, go, I'm going to be Gene Simmons or anything like that. And so then since it was right specifically forming a thrash band, like Steve, for instance, I was telling you, he was in a wedding band. He could play all the Yes songs and all the. I mean, he was known
He
in
was
our
a
high school.
walking radio, essentially.
Well, he was known in our high school out of 5,000 kids, a big Chicago high school called Steinman's, where Hugh Hefner actually went.
Right.
That's he graduated from there. He was known as the musical genius. The guy could play anything, man. Through rumors, I didn't know him in high school because like for me, he felt older, even
His
though he was
name kind of
pretty.
got out there, right?
Yeah, and I so when I told him to be, and I'm not going to make a long story, but I ran into him in the parking lot of after junior college.
Hmm.
After it just so happens that I seen him in the parking lot, and I go, "Hey, it's that guy Steve, man, the guitar
Yeah.
player." So right away, going to a junior college, you don't know nobody there. As soon as he parked his car, I went up to him, "Hey, remember me?" And we had a gym class together. And he remembered that I always wore rock shirts in gym class instead of the Steinman's t-shirt. You had to wear the shorts and the shirt, but I always got in trouble for not wearing the shirt. And he remembered that, "Hey, you're that kid that always got in trouble for not wearing the shirt." Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, and then he goes to me, "Hey, I'm taking a guitar class," and I already had my schedule, and oh, I'm going to take it too. So I dropped whatever one of the classes, and I took a guitar class because he was in it. So that's how we became friends, the guitar class. And I remember telling him, "Hey, I want to form a band, but it's got to be this thing called it's thrash." And it was even weird. Usually, the word was brand new. He goes, "Thrash? What the hell's that? Trash, thrash." And Ray, our drummer, he's also part of he's just amazing, what I mean? But he was already getting into he was into the new wave of British heavy metal. Then he got
Right.
into we love Saxon Maiden, and then I remember he had the first Metallica and stuff. But
Right.
with Steve convincing him, uh, took a little bit, because it was like a guy being it's like telling Steve Howe from Yes to join DRI.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But um, so I noticed other bands around the city, the older kids, like not even old. Let's say I was like 17, 18.
Hmm.
Even if they were the 20-year-olds, the 29, 21-year-olds, the ones that were locally that were known for being in bands, and there was a lot of musicians in Chicago. They frowned upon thrash metal for the first few years,
Yeah,
so they
of
didn't
course.
want to join bands. Yeah, they used to make fun of it. I remember I ran into one big popular local singer that was in town, and then he goes, "Yeah, you kids play that noise; they'll be over pretty soon." And he goes to me, Priest, Maiden, and Sabbath will always be around. Like saying your shit, nobody's ever going to listen. It's a fad. But anyways, but later on, a lot of those bands turned heavy themselves. Turned thrash. They had no choice. Because there were a lot of bands that were so influenced by Iron Maiden at the time. There were a million Maiden clones everywhere. Like around that time, in the beginning of thrash, there were still all these people that could play really well, and Iron Maiden was the blueprint. And then all out of nowhere, this thrash metal thing comes out, and it's crazy sounding to them. But then again, they realized quick when you look back now, thrash metal, the musicianship is damn good on all. It's not like a genre that has weak musicianship. With starting with Megadeth, like technical playing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But
Like,
yeah, in the beginning it was hard to convince people, but luckily though, the first couple shows, like we did our first show with two other Chicago bands that were brand new in death metal. You know what I mean? So that genre was brand new too. And it's combining those bands, us three, somehow we drew a crowd right from the first show where it was like kids that got into slamming right away. So it felt like we were doing the right thing right from the beginning. It wasn't like we had to look for an audience. And every show got bigger and bigger.
so once they were able to like really understand you, and once the genre became more widespread, it was easier to sort of form those connections with you and say, like, now I understand what he's about, what these other guys are all about.
Yeah, because you got to realize, man, think about it from anybody's perspective. Out of nowhere, this new genre pops up. It's never, I mean, it's a new genre, a subgenre of heavy metal. And, if you've already been into metal, let's say you've been playing guitar and you were like amazing at it already, you know, just like when Eddie Van Halen came out with Eruption, and all the
Right.
guitar players before that time go, "What the hell is this thing?"
Yeah,
Because,
because it was all
especially,
squealy, and for the 70s too, it was like
yeah,
mind
because
blowing.
Yeah, because everything before that was kind of bluesy sounding. Richie Blackmore,
Yeah, and all
Eric
like
Clapton.
smooth and
Yeah, and all of a sudden the Eruption comes out. It's like from another planet.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And I listen to a lot of podcast interviews like we're doing, where it's famous guitar players, and they say, well, what? And there's one Van Halen series, and they ask him, "What did you feel when you first heard Eruption?" One of them goes, "I was at a party. I think it was that was." Anyways, they were all famous guys, right? He
Right,
goes, "I was
right.
at a party and I was drunk and I was sitting in a chair, and then as soon as I heard that, it popped me up, and then I just went over to the turntable to see what the hell it was
You
around
had
going around the circle. I
interruption,
couldn't read it.
basically.
And I just kept putting it over and over. Everybody goes, what do you do? Oh, and another guy saying, a lot of people go, I wanted to give up guitar. I didn't know what the hell, or I thought it was a piano. Nobody thought
Right,
it was even a guitar,
right.
So that's what thrash metal could be like for those people, So here we come, these new bands out of nowhere playing a million miles an hour, and you know, they're going to think it's crazy. You know what I mean? And they probably thought it was a fad. But little they know, but literally, slowly, especially when Metallica hit Master of Puppets, and they were opening up for Ozzy on that tour, all those older bands and all the older fans somehow gradually started getting into it. They had no choice, anyways, because think about it, man. Thrash took over for a while, like Megadeth and Metallica.
Yeah, and it's interesting you bring that up. Like you brought up in another interview that in some ways it's easier now because you can just record something and put it up online to sell. But considering the time that you were in, you gained a lot of traction based on your demos. And nowadays, it's like a complete guessing game on how to promote yourself online. But it really helped that you were part of a scene that was very, you know, we talked about thrash, how like people it confused a lot of people, but over time people got like more receptive to it. And you, when you put out your demos, I mean, was it a struggle at first, or did people like immediately like catch on like to
No, it's crazy.
just your demos?
That's a good question because nobody asked it. It wasn't a struggle at all. That's what surprised me. Like we recorded one demo, our first one. It was just like 4 songs, but it was 2 tracks. All the music on one track, and the second track was the vocal. So it wasn't even you couldn't even mix it. But we just did that so we could see how we sounded. So we heard that. We go, yeah, we all sound pretty good. So then we made our real first demo, Killing the Future. We recorded it, 24-track studio, and we're the first ones in the underground to put shrink wrapping on and make it look almost as close to a professional cassette, with the shrink
Right, right.
wrapping.
So, like the first one you did was Sentenced to Death. I mean, how did
That's
that
right,
sound? Was
yeah.
that like a shitty boombox kind of thing?
No, it was a studio, but it was
Oh,
it
a
was we
studio
did,
thing. Okay.
yeah, in one day though. You know how there's tracks? It was one track for the music, so you couldn't and one track for the vocals, basically live. We went in a studio, and he only did that because we didn't have no money bands back then. A couple of Chicago bands did that, and it was come on in for one day and record. No, two, not even two. I mean, literally one day. You'd
All
leave with
right.
the demo. So I mean, we knew we wouldn't want. We knew we didn't want to send that out. Because we knew there were 24-track studios. We just wanted to. Why not go in there and just hear ourselves? Because before that, all we had was boombox from rehearsal, and you could never hear the vocals anyways on a boombox. So I didn't even know what I'd sound like. I go, what if I hate my voice? You know what I mean? But that sense that demo was for us. But somehow it got out a little bit. And some magazine and it was a magazine that was in Walgreens, those kind of places, called Metal Mania. And it wrote like a band from Chicago, no picture, nothing. And it was whoever wrote that column had a lot of humor put into it. So me as a kid reading it, I didn't understand what he was talking about. It was some band from Illinois, but it gave it our address. And we started getting a little bit of mail from that. I go, how did it get out? I was just confused. I was like, that's weird. And the review wasn't bad. It was a pretty good review. It didn't diss it. It just had adult humor in it, because the guys were older and they were talking about stuff. Man, I wish I could pull up that review. Like, just if I had it handy right now, you know what I meant.
It was more
But
like
anyway,
tongue in cheek, right?
yeah, tongue in cheek,
You
almost like
understood
Cream.
what they were on about, right?
Yeah, you know how Cream magazine was sarcastic and tongue in cheek.
Yeah,
Cream.
yeah, yeah.
It wasn't like Circus where underneath the photo you read something that's Eddie Van Halen at this show. But Cream would put something like that's. They'd make some kind of adult humor with it, and I remember always reading. I go, what the hell are they talking about? It was just like a Cream magazine.
Imagine you guys were covered by the British press. It would be brutal. Like this what is this now?
Oh yeah, if it was a British magazine that was sarcastic, yeah, we wouldn't even get what they were talking about at all. But so that was a little weird, that we got mail. I remember in my mailbox getting someone, hey, I read about your Metal Mania, but I guess it was such a big magazine that you'd get some mail from. Well, still, it was in a column for the guy that reviewed demo tapes or whatever, but it wasn't even a picture or nothing. It was just a few sentences at the end. So it wasn't everything I found it fascinating. Somebody would actually read that and write to somebody because of that. Anyways, so then we went and recorded our second demo, Killing the Future, at this place, Solid Sound, which was a 24 track studio. And I knew where to send it out right when we were done right away. I sent it out to Metal Forces and all the main fanzines, you know what I mean? No mainstream magazine, but I guess Metal Forces was his main kind of mainstream because everybody read it in the underground back then. You know, Metal Forces was from England, right? And then just to get a review in their demolition section, right? Right. But not only did we get a review, we got a call from the editor one day at my house. And again, British accent, I didn't understand. I thought it was a prank. I go, who is this? I didn't believe it, you know. And I hung up the first time, and they called back again. And then he goes, "This is Bernard Dow from England."
Charlie.
Yeah, I mean, real heavy accent. And then basically, they were putting out a compilation album called "Scream Your Brains Out," and they were going to pick 5 of the best thrash underground bands of the world and put it out. Because again, Metal Forces was like every band would send their demos there. So they if they're putting out that album, everybody, it was really anticipated. You know, first time they're putting out an album, a magazine's putting out an album, and they're picking the 5 best bands from the world, you know? And they picked us as one of the 5. They loved the demo. They gave it an amazing review, and the mail just poured in, the fan mail. I mean, I was getting, like, for years, well, they built up, you know, with the next demo and everything, so I got more and more. But for years, from the snail mail, I'd open up the envelopes, $5 for demos, you know, $5 for demo. So it almost became like that almost supported my cigarette and my as a young adult, you know, going out to a bar habit, you know, because there was enough, because it was even after the demos were gone, and we kept getting mail. But then again, man, when I'm thinking back right now, because I haven't thought about this in a long time, it also became a problem because towards the end, I got so sick of answering them. They stacked up tons, right? And I remember one summer we were going on vacation to Greece just to hang out and pass around our 89 demo. And it took 4 of us 24 hours sitting in my kitchen playing The Wall from Pink Floyd over and over, answering all the mail to catch up, you know, before we left it. It became so much that right from the beginning, that was the most encouraging thing you could get as a new band, like mail from all around the world. Like I can't even express it how, because we weren't a band that was going around playing clubs. You know how all these bands that we were used to, like the big bands in the city, Paradox or Etrope or Hammer On, all these bands that were playing the local club and 500 people will go see them, but they were doing a lot of covers, you know what I mean? But they felt like rock stars, right?
Yeah.
I'm thinking here, I formed my little band with guys that weren't even, you know, Steve, you know what I mean? It's like, it just felt so like put together by me that I couldn't believe that we were getting more known than these bands that were working forever in the local clubs around the world out of nowhere, you know, within a year or a year and a half, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so right away, I don't know if I answered the question, but right away, the encouragement was strong from the audience around the world, like literally around the world. I mean, the underground scene back then, the snail mail, tape trading was huge.
That's it. And you answered very thoroughly and with so much context. That was a great answer. So it's cool. And um, I was thinking, because your perspective got me thinking about a follow-up point to that is one of my previous interviews, I was talking um, to this guy, Tim King, from the band Soil, and before
I know
that,
him well.
he's a Chicago musician. He was in the band Oppressor, and it was like a similar thing, you know, a similar kind of reception where a little band that he started back in the 90s underground death metal scene became regarded as like one of the top players in his scene. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, because especially because it was extreme music, you know. And
Yeah.
these guys were playing Iron Maiden, Rhine of the Ancient Mariner perfectly, and they would dress like rock star spandex, and they've been working hard to become rock stars. We're going to become. We didn't never thought you'd become a rock star from forming a little thrash band at that point. You know what I mean? I remember when we first formed the band that first year. I remember reading in one fanzine that Metallica got their equipment ripped off. Their trailer with some equipment, and if anybody could donate so they could buy more new equipment. That's how small. There was no big band in our scene, at that time. So it was really for the love of that music, So we were kind of doing it for the right reason too, the music, not to get fame and fortune, the rock star bullshit, And that's funny you mentioned Tim King though, because we know him well because my brother managed Soil for a little bit, and he got him when they got their major label deal with J Records, Soil with Clive Davis, and Tim King. Yeah, I've known him for 40 years or whatever, and I'm just amazed Soil keeps going too, but I think there's only 3 out of the 5 left in the band out of the original 5, but Ryan is in Drowning Pool again now, I think.
Yeah. And
but so Tim King though, he's isn't he is he the president of Pavement, right?
Yeah, Pavement, yeah.
Yeah, man, that's funny you mentioned it because we went. I went to England when Soil was playing because my brother was managing him, and Tim King was standing outside after the show. They did a big show, Soil. It was like in London. I forgot the name of the place. It was packed, right? And after the show, everybody was out in front of the venue, right? And there was a couple punk rock guys. I remember one guy, it was either a skinhead or a mohawk, and they were going to Tim King. Your band fucking sucks, right to his face. Your band fucking sucks, man. But Tim wasn't saying nothing to the guy. Just all right, man. Just leave me alone. He was going, And Tim was, how tall he is. He's a real tall guy. And I kept thinking Tim's going to push him or something, right? And then he kept going, man, your band. And they didn't like Soil because they were, they were hardcore guys. You know what I mean? It wasn't because they were at the show and they were, they were disappointed. I don't even, they probably didn't even see the show, right? So it got to the point where he kept picking on him so much. I don't know what I don't know where I went. I punched the guy right in the face.
Oh man!
And that punch right there started a riot.
Oh man!
Tons of fights broke out. Like my brother broke somebody's thumb. It just got chaos. And then I remember me and 2 other people. I don't remember who it was, but I know it was Soil's guitar player at the time. We jumped into one of those cabs just to get away from the chaos. Because all the cops came with the billy clubs. They don't have guns; they have billy clubs. Right. So I remember that incident though with Tim King. I'll never forget that. I just had it. I just couldn't take it. Like, let's say even if you were next to me and somebody was really picking on you, I made friends that way. Where one of my best friends in high school, some other kid was picking on him, and I just couldn't take it anymore. And I go, hey man, shut the fuck up, man. Whatever happened, and then we ended up becoming friends, till this day. So. I want to. What am I trying to say? That I'm a protector of the innocent and the weak?
No, you stick up for your friends, man. That's
yeah. I feel like everybody needs to do that. You know what I mean?
And you touched upon vacationing in Greece, and this is touching upon your Greek heritage. Well, your birth name is Kyriakos, and
you said it pretty good, man.
Yeah. And I was wondering, are you close with your family? Do you have strong connections to your Greek roots?
Yeah, a real strong. Well, first of all, I was born in Greece, but I came to America. Well, with my family, obviously, at 11 months, maybe a little, maybe about a year old. Well, actually 9 months old. I came here. Okay. A little under a year, and since then, like. 22 times I've been back on summer times and one winter and stuff. So especially in the 80s when the older we got, the more we got addicted to going to Greece because the islands,
It's beautiful, right?
Oh, it's amazing. Island hopping going from Rhodes to Mykonos to Santorini to Corfu. It's just like, it's crazy because you take boat rides and you end up on another island. And, those islands, especially, I don't know what it is now, this present year or these years. But back then, man, all the Europeans would come down, like in the summertime. Let's say the Italians usually were on vacation, the whole country in August, So there'd be a sea of Italians coming in August. or
Yeah.
British girls, or British people coming in June. So it was almost like a Disneyland for young adults that wanted to party and have fun. And
Essentially, yeah.
yeah, and all the girls were topless. You know what I mean? And for us American kids, we weren't used to that. Well, by the time we were going as older, we got used to it. But when we were really young, like preteen, and we go to a Greek beach, you look around and girl, like you're waiting in the cafeteria. You know how the all beaches have like a cafeteria and you can go get stuff.
Yeah.
You're waiting in line to get some chips or pop or whatever or ice cream, and then you look behind you. There's 2, 3 topless European girls waiting in line with you. It was
Oh,
like it was like you were in heaven.
yeah, I know. I love European girls.
Well, yeah, and in Chicago, we come back to Chicago, you wouldn't see nothing like that. Well, they'd get arrested if they were like that in public. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And plus the drinking age was they didn't enforce it. And those summers in the Mediterranean, Greece, man, or the Aegean Sea was incredible. And then somehow also we discovered along the way in the middle this place called Rock City. I remember the Slayer had a Rain and Blood had come out, and everybody was waiting for the next album, right? And we had it in America. We went to Greece, but South of Heaven had already come out, or I had a pre-copy, an advanced copy, and it was coming out in America before it came out in Europe. So I just walked into this place called Rock City. We were just walking around Athens, We seen a heavy metal record shop. We seen them the years before, but this was exclusively heavy metal. There wasn't no other music and everything. So we walk in, and we're just talking like blah blah blah. Where are you from? They're talking to us, and then somehow I mentioned, yeah, we. I don't know how it came up. I go, I got South of Heaven. That's what we're listening to. They all freaked out. South of Heaven. That doesn't come out here until next month. Next thing you know, the guy makes a call. Almost 100. I mean, almost 100 kids showed up to this record store for them to play South of Heaven over the intercom.
Yeah.
I almost had an unofficial in-store. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And from then on, every summer we'd go back we became really good friends with the Rock City people, right? It became a chain in Greece. They opened up a bunch of rock cities, And next thing you know, one summer we were bringing them rock T-shirts from America. Like we went to this local place called Beyond the Limit here. They had all the band shirts, and he gave them to us for we didn't pay for them because we told them how much they wanted in Greece, and we got like 40, 50 shirts, and brought them there and sold them there. And we gave, the guy that owned them, Dominic here in Chicago, we gave him his cut. And we even made enough money to pay for our hotels 1 week in Athens,
Mm-hmm.
And through those, I mean, at one point we started noticing, well, the year before we met Rock City, my brother had a Metallica Metal Up Your Ass shirt, the toilet bowl with the metal thing.
Yeah, yeah. That was the original title of Kill 'Em
Yeah,
All.
yeah, we were walking down the street and some guy stopped my brother in the street. It was me, my brother, my dad. He goes, hey, and my brother, man, he was a little kid then,
Right,
like,
right.
he goes, hey, man, I want your shirt. And he was offering, like, it was drachmas at the time, but it was an equivalent of over, like, almost close to $100 in American money, right? But
Yeah,
my brother
yeah.
didn't want to do it. He didn't want to take off his shirt and walk around without a shirt, And 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 we noticed right there, man, this guy's went crazy about this shirt, And then it happened again to me one other time with a Possessed T-shirt, where this guy just kept bugging me about the shirt, man. He kept raising the money, wanting to trade stuff plus. So we knew that the shirts were like gold. They were real rock shirts, So my point is, man, it's crazy because now, last time I went to Greece, they were selling rock shirts, even little rundown stores. They had nothing to do, in tourist spots. It went from like being nowhere to being everywhere, Um, but so and the thing I'm thinking, the guy that owns Rock City, he was in Australia and then went to Greece on vacation. On the way to Greece, the flight was so bad with the turbulence, he
Right.
got scared to death on the flight. So he never went back home to Australia because he didn't want to get on an airplane. So he ended up staying in Greece just because he got scared on the way there on the flight. And he ended up opening up Rock City and met this girl, Anna, got married, and ended up having this other video chain called Sound and Visions, like 10
Right.
stores in Thessaloniki and in Athens and in Patra. And out of nowhere, think about it, the guy was going on vacation in Greece and never went back home because on that trip, he became petrified to fly.
Oh man.
Yeah, but unfortunately, a few years ago, he died.
Oh
Like
man.
some aneurysm or something like that. But yeah, He was a super cool guy. But anyway, yeah, Greece. We're really close, and my dad comes from a shepherd family. My dad's a tailor, was a tailor, but my grandfather was a classic shepherd. Like 300 sheep or whatever. One of my uncles ended up becoming a shepherd too, because uh, my dad has two other brothers. One
Right.
lived in New York and one lived in Greece. The one in Greece stayed as a shepherd. And my dad and the one in New York became tailors.
Mm-hmm.
My
And
mom's relatives are there too, so we see them.
right. And essentially, what we can glean from this is your efforts go a long way. The relationships that you build with your community, it goes a long way. And you've done a lot for yourself. You've survived that the bankruptcy of Big Chief and sort of went your own way. And then after Eyes of Tomorrow, the next big thing I wanted to talk about is what happened in the late '90s with the famous lawsuit that you were involved with when you were forming Mother God Movie Star, and that was having to do with Interscope. Now, did you have ambitions to start Mother God Movie Star like separate from this lawsuit, or did it happen as a result of that?
It happened as a result of that because when Dr. Dre, see, we're one of the only bands, believe it or not, even big bands. If you look at how many bands trademark their name, a lot of bands don't just do it. You know what I mean? And
Right.
it's a process. And we literally trademarked the name just because I'm like that. When I thought of Aftermath as a name for the band, I remember nobody even knew what it meant. I remember people used to joke, what, after English? Aftermath, after English? That was the big thing over and over. I kept hearing it, after English, and now they use it for everything. Now, I mean, your word is used constantly all day. The aftermath
Yeah,
of
I
this.
thought it was just like what happens, as a result of an outcome. I thought it was a very common word, but then like Dre thought it to be like specific to him, like I'm dropping this album after,
Yeah,
and I'm
well,
gonna
yeah,
go
but
after every aftermath that has the name, and you happen to be there. Like what the hell?
well, yeah, but think about it. In '85, the people just didn't use that word. Just
Right.
like gaslighting out of nowhere just became a word that people use all the time. Because you could tell, there's places you can tell when the word picks up, especially with the internet age, when the word gets mentioned a lot and blah blah blah, it becomes a word in the common use.
Yeah, it's
Like
very buzzwordy now.
yeah, Aftermath wasn't like that in '85. I mean, people just didn't know. They never used it for a
Right.
conclusion. And when I looked it up, it was back then it was for a conclusion of something that was an important event. It wasn't just the
Yeah,
aftermath of me going to the bathroom and taking a piss,
yeah.
or the aftermath of him like picking his nose. I mean, now they use it for everything. So, so we trademarked. We got this lawyer that we met that he did it. I mean, we paid like I don't remember how much, I mean, but I know we paid money for it, to the government and everything. So we got a registered trademark, right? So that made me really feel like, this is our name. You know what I mean?
Right.
Um, and then out of nowhere, one day I get a phone call from some guy pretending that he works for some tiny R&B label that nobody's ever going to hear. But when they noticed that they want to use the name Aftermath, but they noticed I have the trademark, could they give me $5,000 to use it? But he kept pointing out, but no one's ever going to hear the label. It's going to be a small R&B label, and we don't have to give you the 5,000. We're making it like that. We're only doing it just to go. And he made the problem that he was talking to somebody that knew. He said his name and the lawyer, right? His name was Peter Paterno,
Right.
but I happen to know that Peter Paterno is Dre's lawyer and Metallica's lawyer. So I'm thinking, I told him on the phone, I go, what was your name again? He goes, Pete Paterno. I go, but why you small R&B label? I go, well, you're Metallica's lawyer. What are you talking about? Like
So
you're
you already had knowledge prior to
yeah,
that.
yeah, because he probably thought most people wouldn't know his name. I mean, why would he's not a lawyer?
You
It was
know
just
it, like you know damn well.
yeah. So I knew right away something was weird about that. And then at the same time, see, this story to be told well. It's fascinating, but I just want to give a brief synopsis of it. That I just noticed that he was bullshitting, and I took that call when they were on a conference. They
So
had
you would call bullshit right away.
well, and think about it. To set up the scenario, they were in a big office. They were all and the Dre's label. Everything was done, and they left the name issue till the very end. And they kept saying, "Well, it's some metalhead kids in the Midwest that we'll take care of that later. The trademark. We'll take." So they kept, but
Oh man,
it got to
that's
the
very
point.
gaslighting.
And we found this out from later on. How important. Like when they called me at that time, and I was in this room actually. And I remember call waiting, right? And I was talking to my girlfriend at the time, and I had to be at my job at 2 p.m. Right away, it was a bothersome to me because when they call, the first thing goes is, "You said my name right." And they go, "Is Kyriakos there?"
Oh God.
And so then, right when I found out it was Peter Paterno, I totally took the conversation to a crazy turn, man. I was into discovering krautrock from Germany of the early '70s, like Can and Faust and New. And
Yeah, I know all those. Yeah,
and I happened to work. The job I was going to was a record distributor called Baker and Taylor. They had everything. It was a one-stop. So if you had a record store, you go to Baker and Taylor, and you could get every label at that place. You didn't have to go to Warner Distribution or you could just do everything one stop there. You could get Warner stuff. Every label went through Baker and Taylor. So I knew that afternoon I was looking. Every time I went to work, I wasn't paying attention to work. I was going down the aisles trying to find what I wanted to find, right? So I started telling them, "Hey, are you guys into Can or Faust or krautrock?" And I remember they didn't know what to say. They called up to clear this trademark issue, but they can't be mean. They weren't going to hang up on me. And I go, "Well, I'm really into like finding the new records. Do you guys have any suggestions which ones I should get first or whatever?" And you could tell, man, they were perplexed. They were going, "What?" They wanted to talk about, "Hey, man, we want to use this name. Do you want $5,000 or not?" And then out of nowhere, I go, "Hey, well, I got to go now. I'm late for work, and I'm talking to my girlfriend. But if you want to talk to me from now on, talk to my brother." And I
yeah.
hung up. And then my brother was a law school student then. He wasn't a lawyer yet. And then basically my brother took over. The phone calls got more and more. They got to 200,000 almost to give us. And I remember when they got to run 100,000. My brother goes, "Hey man, they're offering a lot of money to use the name 100,000. What do you say?" I go, "I'm not using. I don't want to use it. The band's still around. I'm not going to share the name with them." So we ended up finding these two lawyers pro bono to sue Dr. Dre, and they didn't know nothing about the music industry, but they found it fascinating that we walked into their office. Literally, we were just looking on the phone book, and everything. And we happened to find these two guys that were adventurous enough to do it pro bono. And we ended up building a case, and they didn't know we were building a case to raise people. And out of nowhere, we filed a preliminary injunction. So they had to actually come to court to Chicago, and they weren't even prepared. The first day, they didn't realize how much underground notoriety my Aftermath had. Like we were known throughout the world, but we weren't a big band. But we were known throughout the world, right?
You had an underground following, right?
Yeah. So we had it all. They had it all. The guy that even works at the label now at Zoid, Eric, and those guys put all the fan mail, everything in, those port boxes, and it was all organized. Like let's say Greece, how many all the contact from Greece, Italy, all the countries. It was like almost like
organized by like the world, right?
Yeah, all the fanzines we've been in, all the magazines. So they got so overtaken by the amount of stuff we had. The judge called for a second day, to hear more. They thought they were going to wrap it up that day. So the second day, they brought up more people from California from their law firm, even
the
bigger
proof
people.
Is that you're not an obscure band. You have this dedicated following.
Yeah, and every day that it went for 3 days. The first day, basically the flunkies came out, to Chicago from Los Angeles. Not be paternal, and they couldn't handle it. So the second day, Pete Paterno came out, the big lawyer. And then by the third day, Larry King was his last name, the owner of the law firm, the big one, and all the big people, real big people. And on the second day, they even tried to make it seem like we weren't going to make it to court because it was a car accident. But they lived, the hotel they were at was like a couple blocks from the courtroom, and there was the traffic at that time. They said it was a car accident. Was impossible. So somebody questioned it. So they went out of their way to show up for the second day. They went to prepare. They didn't want to go a second day unprepared. So by the third day is when the conclusion came. The conclusion was that we could both coexist, but we could have still carried on to more court. But then we'd have to actually pay the lawyers because the outcome was, as of right now, you guys both coexist, but we had they gave us a court date months or whatever. I don't remember exactly how far ahead of time, but then it would be a real with a real court, not a preliminary injunction, you know. But then we'd have to pay for the court, and it wasn't pro bono then, you know. And
Right.
so then at that point, I go to and see the judge though. There were two opinions written, one for us and one against us. But the judge also had a history. We Judge Norgal was his name, and he had a history like 10 years before for taking bribes.
Right.
So if the judge said that day, hey man, he's got the trademark, that's what we give him for. He's using the name of the music industry, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it was around the time where rap and metal were becoming, you know, new metal and all that shit, Korn,
Yeah,
Limp Bizkit.
industrial and all that.
Well, the rap was closer to metal then than ever because Limp Bizkit loved metal. You know, they were,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, loved rap. So they were advertising the same magazines and stuff. So it was even more of a confusion. You know, regardless, man, we got the trademark from the U.S. government. You know, and Drake can't. I mean, how could he end up using it? But he said we can both coexist. There's no confusion. You know, which
Mm-hmm.
is ridiculous. And I mean, and but then again, like I said, Dre already was claiming in court that they'd lose like about $6 million if they went my way because the record was already done, been there and done that. The video was done. The machine started rolling, all the major label Interscope stuff. So if they got stopped there, they'd miss the whole season. So they have to wait till next year on the video. You know, back then, you know how much videos cost, and especially
Yeah, yeah.
this was the first release from Dre when he left Death Row, so it was a big deal for them. You know, it was a major Dre's first thing, you know, on Aftermath Records and his new label. So right then, if they lose 6 million, they probably gave. I mean, he took bribes before, and we learned from a clerk later on, coincidentally, that we just ran into, you know, through DePaul, the law students over there, because that case is a precedent now in trademark law.
It's
So
studied across like
yeah,
the nation.
yeah. So somehow it came up with it, and then one guy, when we found out, was go, "Hey, I worked the case because you know they sent out law students to work at law firms, you know, to learn or whatever. I don't know what they're called, paralegals or whatever." And
Mm-hmm.
uh, they brought us a copy. There were two opinions written in case he went my way or in case he went his. You know, the judge had two opinions written, and the last minute he went with that. They could have gave him $1 million. We wouldn't know. He already took bribes. I mean, he got in trouble for taking bribes before. You know, it was in
Right,
his
right.
record. Anyways, the point is, then I go, man, I go, I can't share the name, man. I don't want to do that, you know. And then out of nowhere, Interscope comes to us and goes, out of nowhere, call, where, hey, man, we really like that you guys did that, and you know, we learned you guys got a following around the world, and you kind of remind. He goes, we're thinking of maybe signing you guys and we'll work the Midwest with you guys, and just like we do with Marilyn Manson with Florida and how we build, you know, one place at a time. And then I think we could have a good future together. And then we get the news they want to sign us now. I go, well, that's insane. Well, and then I remember being in with Jimmy Iovine at the
Mm-hmm.
Smart Bar and Doug Morris from the head of Universal. You know, Doug. You know, those both are legendary people. You know,
Yeah,
billionaires, right?
Jimmy. I remember Jimmy. He worked with Tom Petty.
Yeah, and he's well, he even worked with Lennon too, and
Yeah,
he's the one that with Dr. Dre that came up with the era, you know, the buds or whatever.
yeah. The
Uh,
Dre beats. Yeah,
yeah, it's him and Jimmy Iovine. Well, I remember Jimmy Iovine goes, "Hey," he goes after we knew we signed to him, and I remember seeing him, and he goes, I go, I'm thinking about changing the name of the band, right? And he thought I was joking. He goes, what do you mean? I go, yeah, you guys, we sued you over it. I go, man, I don't want to use the same name. I remember he goes, Mick Jagger doesn't have a problem with Rolling Stone magazine and the Rolling Stones. I go, it doesn't matter, Mick Jagger or anybody. It's what I feel. You know what I mean? And so what we did, we up until the last minute, they thought they were going to get the second Aftermath album. Think about it. Isaac Tomorrow was out. It was a credible underground album. You know, it was like it had critical acclaim and everything.
yeah.
And the second album would have been on Interscope, Aftermath, and they thought it would be more of you know, the progression. You know, just like Tool built their following, being musically challenging and stuff like that. You know, so a band like that, like a Dream Theater on Atlantic, you know, those bands you don't need to put a lot of money into them because they get hardcore followings. You know what I mean?
Right.
And we ended up giving him Mother God Movie Star instead. That was started as a rock band, and it slowly throughout the album became more electronic until the end it became full on DJs. You know, So I remember when we handed in the album to Interscope, they were going, "What the hell? We thought this was an Aftermath. We signed the Aftermath." We'll go, I go, "Well, I told you I wasn't going to use the name, man. The lawsuit wasn't a joke." I remember we flew to Los Angeles in the Interscope offices, you know, and they're going, "But this isn't fully metal. This isn't fully anything. This is like." It was something new, you know what I mean? Later on, like bands like Prodigy, or like, when electronic band, like when
Yeah, Manson had a little bit of that too, and like,
but it wasn't. We weren't influenced by them at all because
yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't.
you were like you said, you were into like krautrock and all that
Yeah,
noise.
I was so into music experimentation, like from
Right,
King Crimson,
experimentation is the
yeah,
kind
to
of
King
rock.
Crimson to what's his name, man, Frank Zappa stuff,
Yeah,
not
yeah,
just
Zappa, yeah.
or Captain Beefheart. You know what I mean? Where that album's like people think of it as noise, but it's really complex music. You know what I mean? Just I love pushing the envelope. Just experimenting with music to see where it'll go. Right. So Mother God Movie Star really was. It is Aftermath. It was Aftermath, but it went to the next. Aftermath started as a crossover
It
band.
was
Went
aftermath
technical.
for that particular era of music,
Yeah,
like
yeah, because it went technical thrash metal, and then it went into a whole other thing. Listen to the Mother God.
alternative kind of, more DJ stuff, right?
Yeah, but DJ stuff. Have you ever heard the Mother God album?
Yeah, yeah, I've heard some of it, but like you said, it progresses toward like it starts out heavy kind of guitars
Yeah, like
and
a band.
stuff, still experimental, but then like you said, like the DJ stuff and
Well,
yeah,
exactly. See, if you put it on, I wanted a audio journey because it started out. Well, first song was a band, playing with a tinge of a little bit of electronic sound, but a
experimentation kind
noisy
of thing.
sound.
Yeah.
But then the next song got a little bit like in the next song, the whole half part of the song is almost like a ballroom scene. It's almost like a jazz band playing in a ballroom of the 20s. It's got that type of vibe in it.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of like something like in The Shining, if they had a banquet hall and there was like the dance happening, the movie, and you get it's called No Sunday. Um, so that song after the ballroom kind of jazz part, it goes into like some hypnotic beat, and then it goes into an interlude, and there's four interludes sprinkled throughout the album. But those four interludes at the end of the album become full blown songs. So like the interludes got sampled by the DJs. The rule for the DJs were you could only sample from the interludes on this album. You can't sample outside the album.
Yeah, you don't want more lawsuits coming here.
Yeah, well, because think about it. It was like working taking a DJ that became huge. The DJ became gigantic later on. Like DJs became known like rock stars. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
At
yeah,
that point,
Delta 9, yeah.
who'd you say? Delta Nine? Oh yeah, yeah. Delta Nine was on it. Yeah, he was really big in Europe in the Gabber.
Yeah, my
Real
brother's
fast.
into like electronic stuff. He knows
Yeah,
more a
Gabber was
lot more about
hardcore.
him than I do.
Yeah, Gabber's techno was like boom, 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 boom,
Yeah,
boom,
yeah,
boom.
boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, and all these crazy European raves that he used to play because he lives in Chicago. And then it was pretty unique, man. It was like really pushing. Well, to the point where we even confused most people. What the hell is this? And so yeah, it became I named him Mother God Movie Star because we didn't lose, we could coexist. To me that was
Coexist,
a
yeah.
loss. Yeah, and
It
well,
was
think
more
about it,
like a
man.
peace treaty in that regard.
Well, because I wasn't joking, man. Like if I right now, man, there's a lot of other aftermaths throughout the time.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, you could see a lot of them, like on
yeah, but
Wikipedia, on Discogs, and
yeah,
everything.
and that's why Mother God Movie Star. I knew there wasn't going to be any other band by that name. You know what I mean? Because I
Mm.
made it up. Well, Mother God, it had a meaning too. It was basically a pot reference that I made up, like Mother God, Mother Mary with Jane Mansfield's the movie star, Mary
And
Jane.
then there's the Mother God cult too.
Yeah, it sounds like a cult name, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
And then I was in the other band, Stripping the Pistol too. That name is pretty unique too. So Aftermath to me, if I could rename the band right now, I would. It wouldn't be any word or name that anybody would ever use again besides us,
Hmm.
But too late now, you know what I mean? Aftermath is like, but the thing is though, Aftermath it was broken up. We broke up after the Mother God, we got signed. We put out one album. We did a U.S. tour with the Jenna Torturers and
Mm-hmm.
an industrial band, this a sex show. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then we broke up, man. So we broke up in '98 or something like that. So you could say Aftermath really broke up in '96 when it became Mother God. You know, after the lawsuit and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But Mother God, movie star, '99. Let's say we broke up and we reunited in 2015. So we were broken up. How many years is that? From '98 to 2015.
Yeah, like 26 years, like something like that.
Yeah, we were broken up totally. I mean, we there was never plans to reunite Aftermath or nothing like that. The thing that reunited is during the MySpace years, some fan of Aftermath, and it was amazing to me that people were still, Eyes of Tomorrow, especially when the first internet came out and things were coming on there. I wasn't on it, but people would always come up to me, or my brother was into that stuff right away, the internet, right from day one. He would go, "Hey, look, here's a Eyes of Tomorrow review." And I would think it's funny. Eyes of Tomorrow, it was years, I didn't know it was kept going, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And the
like they
underground.
do like retrospective reviews, right?
Well, or somebody just discovered it because it kept growing. Eyes of Tomorrow. Like when we put it out, we never really promoted it. We self-financed it to get it from the studio because we were left with half the the Big Chief gave half the money when we went in. They'd give the rest of the money when the album was done. But they were bankrupt, like I said. So we paid it off, and it took us years to pay off. So when we were done paying it off, we didn't go on tour. We didn't do nothing. We didn't. The album basically we put it out there, printed whatever it was, and forgot about it. So when all those years were broken up, it was growing and growing. But how will we know? We started finding out when the internet came out and you started seeing stuff like that, right? But anyways, MySpace is around then. Some fan from Czech Republic wrote my brother. He wrote like, "Hey, I'm going to start a fan page for Aftermath. You guys mind? Because he used to write us through snail mail. Because I remember because I didn't even know who he was, really who he was. You know what I mean? It was just like, when you got mail, they might write to you a lot of times, but you forget about it. You know what I mean? It's not like
Yeah.
I knew him personally. So I was going, they want a what? Aftermath fan page. I go, I don't care. Tell him, yeah, whatever. I mean, why? And then he did it. He put it up, and then he would send us stuff that he got messages that were important, that he found important. So it got more and more. I remember at one point he sent us to do festivals in Europe in the beginning, and I go to my brother, "Hey, there's no band, man." So he goes, "Hey, I'm just telling you, that guy got this letter from some festival," and they go, "They don't care as long as it's the singer in the band." You know what I mean? And that's why they asked me. I go, "No, I would never. First of all, I would never do it without the guys in Aftermath." So that was the first go around. But things got more serious when a Chinese label requested to put out a box set for the band. The
Mhm.
box set, I got it back there, one of them. And hold on, let me grab it.
You bring up a good point though, like a Chinese label thinking like having you, close to their hearts,
Well,
wanting
look,
to
this
wanting
is
to
this is
put
what
you
they put
out.
it.
The scene in Asia, the metal scene in
Well, look,
Asia,
well,
you
look
would
at
have been
this.
embraced there, and like Japan and China and the
Well,
Philippines, they would have loved
but
you.
but but they, through that MySpace page, that's how they contacted us. But look at
Right.
this shit. It was DVD, three like
Holy
like
hell.
amazing. It was
Yeah.
called Area Death Records. So, anyways, he sent us this. But no, right when we were getting this stuff, he goes, "Hey man, maybe you guys should take over the page." Because my brother manages bands. That's why my brother is involved. And he was always our manager. And he goes, "Maybe you guys should take over the page because it's kind of getting serious." And then we got an offer at the same time. That's why he said it from Headbangers Open Air in Germany to do the festival. So
Hmm.
he felt, see, he was cool about it. He goes, "Hey man, you guys might want to do this stuff now. You're getting record offers and you're getting show offers. So let's not just give it over to the band." So we took over the page, and then noticed that man, Eyes of Tomorrow kept getting more known as a great technical thrash album. And but still there were no band members. But at the same time, we got the offers for the not for the box set, but for the festival. Somehow we all reconnected. Me, Steve, and Ray. The three of us that started the band.
Hmm.
Organic, nothing to do with the music stuff, right? Just like I haven't talked to Steve, the guy, the music teacher, the jazz guy, that in
Mm-hmm.
15 years. Because just we were always together during Aftermath. He was my best friend from the day I ran into him again in the college parking lot till the band broke up in '96 or whatever. We were together every day. We seen it. But when the band broke up, he moved in. He moved out to far out in the suburbs, and we lost touch. So like literally for almost 14 years, we didn't talk. I didn't. But
Wow.
out of nowhere, at the time that we got those offers, we started talking, and the next thing you know, we go, hey man, maybe we should do the German because we got the German offer a year before the show happened. So I told my brother, hey, there's no band. He goes, hey, I'm not going to tell him no right away. Let's just see what happens. It's a year from now, I'll tell him half a year from now that you guys can't do it. But somehow magically through that period, which I thought we would never ever get together, we did. So to me, it felt like it was meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
Even see after that, everything to reunite was meant to be. And I hate even talking about it because it wouldn't make sense unless you lived it with me. Because even for where we're going to rehearse, we rehearsed in my brother's basement, but it's like a studio down there, right? And
Right.
that he's the one that wanted us to go down there. I remember we had a meeting. I was still fighting. I go, yeah, we'll do that one show, but we're not going to continue. And then rehearsing places, blah, blah, blah. Everything that I presented as a roadblock, the answer was answered right away perfectly. Yeah, you can rehearse in my basement. I go, you just moved there with your wife. How are we going to rehearse in your basement? He goes, that's where I want you guys to rehearse. So then, perfect. Or how are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? The answer came back right away this way and right away to me. I go, wow, that's pretty cool. So I couldn't say no. I couldn't stop it because I never had intended it to be where it is now to a full functioning band again. You know what I mean? But
Mm-hmm.
then the music started coming around where let's write one song because our drummer goes, hey, why don't we write one new song? Next thing you know, man, without even realizing it, we got 10, 11 brand new songs that we made our There Is Something Wrong concept album in 2019. Since we reunited, we've already released 2 albums and we're working on the third one now. I mean, and I'm so glad it happened because through Spotify and everything now, when you go on a band's page and you see their whole catalog, forever would have been Aftermath, just Eyes of Tomorrow. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Besides the demos, you know what I mean? But now we're building a pretty good catalog. I mean, this is going to be our, like I said, we got the 3 albums. This will be our 4th album that's going to come out now that we're working. We got all the songs pretty much written already. And believe me, man, I want to tell you this for real. Like, if I didn't love it, if I didn't feel, regardless of what happens when it comes out, like if I didn't think it was great, I would have never released it because what's the point? If I didn't love it, well, why would anybody want to hear it? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just amazed at how good the music sounds, and I love it. And the lyrical topics are really important, not just for the world. You know what I mean? I'm not saying I just know enough, and I've studied enough how the world operates that I know that, for instance, the 2019 album, There Is Something Wrong, was explaining all the wrongs and who is the real rulers of how the world works. And since then, the lyrics, if you read the lyrics on there, like people have
And
come around that were
2020
totally
was like an example of that with COVID happening too. So
exactly,
in a
exactly,
way,
dude. Exactly, because right when we put it out 2019, COVID happened pretty much right after. I go, this is proving what I was saying because it did talk about that stuff. Pandemics on there, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
now looking back, I could have been looking.
foreshadowing, right?
Well, with those lyrics that I wrote, if you read the lyrics on that album, There Is Something Wrong, False Flag Flying, Smash Reset Control, all those songs, Dythanasia. I could have been looking at them and what the fuck was I thinking? None of those things turned even close to accurate. But all the topics on there, like the pharmaceutical company stuff on
Yeah, yeah,
Dythanasia.
big pharma and all that.
Well, the song starts out, Big Pharma, what can you do? Nation's hurting cause of you. Depopulation, Agenda 21,
Yeah, yeah.
Ideology, Secret Society. All those lyrics, man, even people around us back then going, man, this is like, how do they were questioning that stuff. Now they're advocates of it and they send stuff to me or share on their pages our songs, the topics that, about a false flag somewhere, they'll use our song for that. I go, how they've come around, you know what I mean? How
Hmm.
more awakening there's been, after COVID.
And it's a testament to your friendship. You can go, um, months, years without talking to someone and completely resume uh,
Yeah.
action. And it's cool because um, you mentioned the MySpace era. There's so many bands from the internet era, the MySpace era, the SoundClick era, the iSound era, which are completely lost to time. So it's cool in a sense that you guys, being from the physical media era of CDs and tapes, you have physical copies of your stuff that others are able to find and spread your means that way. And it's sad because unfortunately there's so many bands from the internet, from those, internet eras, that are lost to time, and you're lucky to have downloaded those songs and kept them on your hard drive for many years, because if you didn't, then you can miss out on like having an amazing band from a period in history that was kind of overlooked.
Yeah, and again, man, that's funny. So you're saying like because they're all like on the internet and they don't have physical copies, it disappears. They could
Yeah,
disappear,
yeah,
right?
because of like the whole MySpace was brought out by Rupert
Yeah,
Murdoch,
and
and
that's
then
all
they
gone.
completely, the server shut down, the music shut down,
That's
so
funny you say
all
that.
these bands are completely forgotten.
No, no, that's funny you say that, man, because I remember when MySpace disappeared pretty much. I remember there was so much stuff on that page alone because it was the beginning of us coming back where people first were putting, oh, you guys are, we got a page and we weren't even back yet. Just that fan put up the page in the comments, just some things that people even wrote on there that I wish I took a picture of at least so I can remember because they were really touching, because imagine them. Somebody that likes the band and first time sees them, they're back. What they're not going to write it a second time again. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So there was like their comment section, whatever it was called, and photos that people have sent or photos that were put up there that sent by people. This I had of it. It was all on the photo thing. The kid was putting them all up, and nobody ever kept those. So like an example of that, yeah, it sucks that it's gone, man. It's gone. I mean,
yeah,
it
I
could be,
just,
it could happen with Facebook now. Yeah, you always got to have physical copies, man.
mm-hmm. And
And
that's good that
and we believe the album too. How it's a single driven market now, and everybody's going the album's dead. A lot of people, uh, the album it can't die. The album is what matters. You know what I mean? Otherwise, if you're just working on singles, it'll never become like the great bands of the yesteryear where they became true artists in it because you can't just do it with singles because singles are just the mentality of singles is to get popular with that single. You know what I mean? Like
mm-hmm.
on an album, you're gonna put songs that you don't want them to be pop. You want them to be album tracks. You want people to
Yeah,
find them on their own.
deep cuts.
Yeah, deep cuts. Yeah, I mean, yeah, every song we have, we're thinking of it as a single. It's even crazy to think that way.
Yeah, and and it's weird. They're like, if you put on an album with a bunch of singles that a lot of people have heard already, it goes back to like the Irish show band era, like when all their 45s are like compiled to
Yeah,
like,
yeah, like yeah,
like
like they did
where they do the American accents of like American covers.
exactly. Yeah, or yeah, or like K-Tel albums or something.
Yeah, K-Tel albums where they have, remember when they had like artists from the 50s come out and they do like an 80s recording of the
Yeah,
thing and they do
yeah,
like all digital instruments. Oh man, it
Well,
sounded
then you could even go
horrible.
back. That's how the music business was in the beginning, where there were white artists were taking black songs and making them like Pat Boone would do a blues song or whatever. You know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
because they knew it'd sell it through.
Yeah, and
It's funny.
they were so, the Kato thing. It's funny you mention that because at the time, like, they would get an artist like out of retirement because they weren't paid for the songs that they did because they were just like standards, right? And then all of a sudden this artist from the 50s is doing an 80s cover of like essentially the song that made them famous, and the song from the 50s basically now has a very synthetic.
Yeah, yeah,
It's just
yeah. And the funny thing is, all we're all talking about all this. All artists always get ripped off by these labels, man. It's like
yeah.
it's the guys that create the music, that give you the product you sell. You're gonna treat them the worst. You're gonna always like literally, you find out like when I was a kid, I remember Van Halen was the biggest band we thought, right? And I remember reading an interview that Eddie and Alex just moved out of their house when they made their third album. And the first album changed the world. I mean, multi-million sellers. and they still haven't made enough money to move out. And then now I recently I heard an Alex Van Halen interview where I got the details from him. It was an interview that was never posted, and some guy posted a 6 series of the Alex Van Halen interview. And that guy, man, he explained everything that Van Halen fans were questioning for years. Warner Brothers, he goes, man, we get done with Van Halen 1, Van Halen 2, they're huge million sellers, right? We do million shows around the world, and we come back and we still owe Warner Brothers $1 million, literally. And actually, I just heard this interview like 2 days ago. As a matter of fact, it was just put up, a 6-part series, right? And think about it. Van Halen 1 changed the world. Eruption's on there. It's gigantic, right? The second album comes out, the same thing. And Dance the Night Away, it gets huge. They're touring it. They're selling out places, and they get done with all their touring. That's why they said back then they were still at home. They made, they owed him. They owe the label $1 million still.
Oh shit!
So, I mean, would you think that back then we thought kids, man, Van Halen 1, those guys are millionaires?
You thought those guys were living large, but they were actually like struggling quite a bit.
And now through podcasts, because you didn't get these kind of interviews before or like we're talking now. You wouldn't get like KK Downing from Judas Priest, they had a lot of schism, and he talks a lot about their behind the scenes workings with Judas Priest. I mean, what magazine would print something like that? It was now a guy sits there and talks for an hour and a half on a podcast. He says stuff that you really always want to hear because they're not through the record label PR system,
Right.
Find out the truth. And these past few years, listening to all these old rock stars, all the questions we had when we were kids, man, we're going, man, no wonder they were struggling, man. It was like a fight. Like they were always afraid they were going to get dropped. Like we thought they had it made, we always thought the grass was greener. Even with Metallica and Megadeth, when we first started, we got our deal from Big Chief Records. It was like for $8,000 for the first album, and the next one would be 12, and the next one was
that
a 5
the advance payment that you guys had?
Yeah, the advance for the studio and everything. But we thought it was minuscule because we thought that's nothing, right? But now through these podcasts, the first Megadeth album, they got $4,000. We got more than that. We thought they got 30,000. We never knew that even those bands were where we were at, because and plus nobody would say it, and you wouldn't give your real stuff, right, back then, right? Mm-hmm. You wouldn't tell people how much I don't know. It just seems. I wish I knew then what I knew now, which is one of the songs on Eyes of Tomorrow, Being. It's all about if you only knew then what you knew now, or you should live now and not just regret on your deathbed, Right. But I swayed into subject matter on one of the songs, Beings, But what I'm saying is, man, you just got to focus on yourself. Like if you're a musician out there wanting to be in a band, you first of all, you got to love what you're doing, because the business of it, and it's not so much now because now you can do everything on your own, really. But if you really got a passion for it, you got to do it. And that passion, it's almost like, how do you know if you're really in love with somebody, right? Like I dated a lot of girls, right? I've only been in love with 2 of them, and I quite love, like, when you care about them so much, you always want to be with them. You worry when they're not around.
Oh man, I've been there, man, too many times.
Yeah, because I've dated girls that I liked a lot, but I wouldn't worry if I didn't talk to them that day. Where are they? You know what I mean?
Right,
once it felt in your heart, you got nervous when you seen them. And
man, butterflies, right?
Yeah, and believe it or not, that's how I feel about music. Like I don't like if I put like the aftermath we just put out, especially the last album, No Time to Waste. I love it so much that I would be embarrassed saying, if I at 20 years old, if I heard me saying I love it so much and telling you, I play air guitar to it. When I put it on, like on Spotify, let's say I just put it on, everyone, I'll listen to the whole album and just listen to it like I'm listening to an album when I was 14 years old, listening to Number of the Beast,
So, I just your love latest album, No Time to Waste, you're like super proud of it, man.
I love it. I fucking love it. I mean, to me, I can't even explain. Like during the COVID thing, when we had all the songs done and I had them all on a tape from the basement, where we rehearsed, just me on my phone, I just recorded them. I remember we didn't rehearse, and I was getting so angry at not rehearsing because I go, there's no reason we shouldn't be rehearsing, right? So and one day I even told everybody in the band, I go, I'm going to take a ride. I'm going to listen to all these, because I didn't listen to them for like 2-3 months, the songs from the basement, right? If I don't love them when I listen to them fresh right now, the band will break up, I went on a ride. I almost forgot that I was testing it, and I was just enjoying it, man. Mm-hmm. And
just the rough cuts?
Just, basement, just like us practicing and me recording it with my phone,
Mm-hmm.
like that. Yeah, total rough cuts, not even just from the phone and everything. And I loved it. And if I
Just
didn't
home
love him like that,
demos, basically.
yeah. And if I, and man, and I would never, I can't believe I'm saying that, man. I just think they're amazing. I love
It's
them.
still
I mean,
there. The passion is still there, right?
it's beyond the passion. It seems like, it seems like some, it's through the lyrics, because man, believe it or not, I feel the lyrics pertain to all of us. It's almost like I'm a whistleblower. It's almost like me exposing even something that everybody should know, like a basic thing on the There's Something Wrong album, that the Federal Reserve is a middleman, right?
Right.
Right now, it's more known than ever. But trust me, man, even a few years ago, like I run into lawyers. I remember one time my brother had a bunch of lawyers, party, and from whatever, just professional lawyers, man.
Yeah,
You think
yeah.
they're smart. I remember a couple of them didn't know they thought the Federal Reserve was the government. They didn't know it was privately owned. And
Yeah, the
just
Federal Reserve is like the biggest scam of the
it's a
United
middleman. They print
States.
the money before the Federal Reserve. They created interest. They created income tax. They created all that bullshit. That the original.
It's its own thing.
Yeah. Well, it's like we're going to print your money, and then we're going to give it back to the government, and they're going to give it back to you. And it's a pure middleman. It's a Ponzi scheme. You know.
Right, right, yeah, yeah.
And I know how the history in Jekyll Island, how they went down there and did it. It was the four bankers, and they were called the No Name Club because they went down to Jekyll Island. And back then, when the rich people used to go somewhere, they used to put their names when they signed in somewhere. So they put no name just so nobody would know. As a matter of fact, even a picture of them going down there, they said they were going down there to hunt. They had a picture of them on the New York Times. With they go, well, they went down there to hunt that kind of animal, but the guns they brought with don't aren't the guns for that animal. Back in the 30s or whatever, because a smart reporter going, why are they gathering down there? These powerful men. And they signed the deal that they wanted to get it through Congress. They went late in the year when most people were on vacation to get it passed through the bill. They ended up getting it passed. Or whether it's even sugar. The sugar industry in the beginning, it was hard for them to get passed by the Congress because they want putting sugar in food and everything like that brings out the addiction. They don't want you to eat when you're hungry. They want you to snack all day. That's how people became, out of shape and sick. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Just like, just like to show how evil, like, just to be aware that we live under a really corrupt world. The world's really corrupt, right? It's not
Hmm.
run by good people. The people who run the world aren't out for the love of humanity. You know what I mean? See, I don't want to get into those kind of topics with you right
No,
now,
no, no.
but what I'm saying is, through the lyrics, I feel like I'm exposing something that should be, because I feel like it's almost like you've seen like a famous New York scene where a woman was getting beat up and mugged, and there was an apartment building, and a million people seen it, and not one person called the police. It's a famous case. I forgot what it was called. Like if I seen a crime happening, well, it goes back to the bullying. You know what I mean? If you're getting picked on, I wouldn't just, even if the guy was bigger, I wouldn't just stand and have somebody, a stranger. I would still try to help him. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So the lyrics, I feel, are like that kind of perspective, and the band are amazing musically. So I feel like this powerful machine trudging ahead, spreading truth.
In other words, your most recent album, No Time to Waste, is just, it's your baby all over again. You said it's beyond the passion. It's just your energy is just reignited full force.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love it. And so far, the album we're working on right now is we still have that same vibe, because I'm telling you, if I feel it, I don't have it, the band's over. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
No Time to Waste, just that's the cover right there. See it over there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's got the inversion of the world. You know how everything, they're turning good into bad or whatever. It's just listen to the song Up Is Down on there, or a song called Straw Man in the House of Cards. Yeah, they just blow my mind. I love them.
Mm-hmm. And
But I
then
can't talk any more about it because I don't want to overbrag
no,
overbrag.
it's all good, man. It's perfect. And you're also in the band Stripping the Pistol, and you have a new single coming out. Talk about that.
Well, that single, Black Reflections, is going to be in a. I guess the movie premieres Friday. It's called. Oh man, what's it called? The movie Throwaway. It's a movie. It's a comedy, and it's William Sasso. You remember the Three Stooges remake? He played
Yeah, yeah.
Curly, and Ben Lee, famous podcaster, the Asian guy, Ben Lee.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the leading lady, everybody's seen her in a million things, you know. And there are a couple that are in the midlife crisis, and somehow I don't know if she hits her head, if it's like Freaky Friday or something like that, but she goes back into her college years when she used to party when she's married years later into her marriage. So it's a comedy about her going back, a middle, not, you know, a woman that's been married, blah blah blah, going back to being a party, crazy college party girl, and that's what the movie's about, the throwaway or something like that. And I guess our Black Reflection song is in when she's shooting paint guns in a scene with paint guns, you know. She goes,
Hmm.
is that what they call them, paint guns?
Yeah, yeah. Paint
Yeah,
pellet gun, paintball guns.
yeah. So I might go see the movie Friday, like to see it when it opens Friday. It opens at like I don't know how many, not thousands of theaters. It opens up a lot, and then it's hitting all the all the sites like Netflix, either Netflix or one of the other ones. They carry all that stuff, you know.
Yeah.
But I just hope it's a good comedy, man, because you know how hard it is, man, to go and watch a movie and really laugh, real
Yeah,
laughter. I mean,
everything's panned nowadays. Everything's
man,
all
I can't
blurred
even
out
remember the
one
last time I
dimensional.
cracked. Maybe it was There's Something About Mary. What year did that come out? Remember that movie
I
with
can't
Cameron?
remember something
Man, I
about
remember.
Mary, but I heard of it.
Yeah, that was a funny. Ben Stiller was in there.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that was the last movie I laughed at.
Oh
Because
man.
you can make somebody cry easily with a drama or whatever, but to really make somebody laugh or a great stand-up comic, you know, that's
Those
hard.
belly laughs, right?
Yeah, yeah, where you're like you can't take it anymore. Oh, stop, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
those are priceless, man.
You're
I mean, those,
crying, you're sneezing, you're pissing, you're shitting, you're everything.
yeah, yeah. And I remember, you see, they're so priceless and they happen so rare that the few times that got that extreme for us, I remember one of them was on New Year's Eve with at a friend's house. We weren't 21 yet, and I remember the laughs were so crazy that why would I remember us laughing? That's all I remember. I don't remember why we were laughing. I remember he had long blonde hair, and I lit the back of his hair on fire by accident because we were cracking up, and I went to light a cigarette, and his hair caught on fire. And that made us even laugh more. But it was the kind where you were crying. Yeah, the tears were coming out, and you literally couldn't handle it anymore. I mean, if I could experience, if we could have had this right now happening on the podcast, I would do it. I'd go, click. Imagine me and you cracking up.
So you have stripping the pistol with what's his name, with Kevin Shirello. And how did you
Yeah,
guys meet? How did you get together?
we met after Aftermath was broken up around 2000, 99 or around those years, you know,
Yeah.
like he was working at Guitar Center with
Right.
Aftermath had a second guitar player during the Eyes of Tomorrow years, John Lavetti, and John was working at Guitar Center,
Hmm.
and then he goes, "Hey, this is a kid, and I work with. He just came from where was he living before? He's originally from Florida, and he was living in Philadelphia or something. He moved to Chicago. He got a job at Guitar Center in the warehouse, and
Right.
then he goes, "Hey, you want to?" He seems like he's pretty cool and everything. So he introduced him to me, and then somehow we ended up forming Stripping the Pistol, and yeah, so that's a whole crazy story with Stripping the Pistol because we really um,
The bottom
we
line
almost
is you had a good chemistry and you knew what you wanted to create.
well, it was early on because it was two dual vocals there because it was before you know how Linkin Park had the rapper and the
Yeah,
singer,
yeah, yeah.
and then later on
Mike
other bands
Shinoda and
had
all that.
yeah, or a Trey, you had two singers, the heavy guy and the drummer was a melodic guy. You know, it was
Hmm.
before all that. So we thought I go to him. I remember like I had an idea. Hey, I'll do. Let's write songs where there's aggressive and melodic, and I'll do the aggressive parts, and you do the melodic parts. And I think it'll be kind of cool to have two voices because nobody in metal really has two singers. You know what I mean? And then
Right.
2 years later, it was everywhere. You know, the dual singer thing. At that time, you know, it became the heavy and the melodic, but we put it together and right away we got a lot of label interest. Even we almost signed a Columbia Records at the time with Matt Pinfield being the A&R guy, the guy
Oh,
from
Matt
MTV.
Pinfield with that kind of voice.
Yeah,
Matt Pinfield won 120 minutes. That guy.
yeah. Well,
Awesome.
we got some crazy. He came to Chicago and hung out with us, and we even
Yeah,
went to
because he's
Greektown. I
a
remember.
Chicago native.
Yeah, we went to Greektown. I remember, and all the waitresses were really gorgeous. They were so
Yeah,
late.
oh, I
And
bet.
and he started using the celebrity thing with it, man. He was eating something, he was cutting it with his knife there. He goes, yeah, you know, I'm on TV and everything, right? He goes, you look
Yeah, you
familiar.
do a good Matt Infield impression.
Yeah, and then they were taking pictures with him, you know, all these waitresses and everything. And we went by the Metro for our show, and then all these kids were coming up to him for autographs and everything. And but I don't know. I mean, but we kind of lost. We didn't sign to Columbia because, see, I don't know if I should be saying this because this is his stuff, but Matt disappeared for a few weeks while he was here because he went on a binge of, you know, and nobody could find him.
Oh
And
man.
he ended up. My brother went and found him. See, I don't know if I should be saying this stuff, you know. Anyways, I could tell you off the air, but
Right.
yeah, because it's dirty laundry.
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah. The the main thing is Strip and the Pistol had its own success and they're gonna, you know, they're gonna do more stuff. That's the important part.
Well, now there's. I mean, this movie thing out of nowhere, a surprise, right? But we were in one scene of the Osbournes too. There was a Strip and the Pistol song in a scene when Jack was in his bedroom or something like that, doing something. They sent us DVDs because you know, you had to sign a kind. You had to give them permission to let the song in the TV show or whatever, the Osbournes. So that band was always. Have you heard Strip of the Pistol?
Yeah, I've heard your recent single. I've heard a
Black
preview on your
Reflections.
website.
Yeah, there's a couple other songs that should come out that are pretty. Yeah, man, they're pretty cool. Like Hope or Sunshine in the Rain. They're almost
Yeah,
like even the Columbia Records in their meetings. You know, the big guy, the guy that was married to Mariah Carey. What's his
yeah,
name?
yeah.
Mottola, Tony Mottola. Is that his
Yeah,
name?
Tommy
I remember.
Mottola, yeah.
Yeah, I remember they played that song to him and everything, and he thought it was a big hit, you know, and everything. But what happened was Matt did with that other stuff, you know. But
Mm.
that band, I think, yeah, that band was pretty cool. The Strip of the Pistol is I can't even describe it because Aftermath to me is a whole other thing. They're so
Right,
different, but then again, they're heavy. It's metal music in a way, but it's not. It's a million miles apart from each other, you know.
right.
So let's see if it's just the only thing is time in the day. You know what I mean? Time goes by so quick, and
Yeah,
it seems like the day ends out of nowhere. So fitting in all this stuff, plus having a job, I work part time at UPS at O'Hare Airport,
yeah, yeah.
and just life in general. You know, hanging out with you gotta hang out with some girls and stuff like that. I'm not
Yeah, of
married,
course.
so so it just seems time's running. It just seems time goes by so fast that like then again, maybe I should go to sleep earlier and wake up and conquer the day early on. When you wake up at 12 in the
Yeah, get
afternoon,
more out of the day, you know?
yeah, yeah, because I'm still a night guy. You know, what I mean, I love staying up all night.
Yeah. And then considering your career thus far, what have you learned about yourself, not only as a musician, but as a person?
That I learned that everything I liked originally, whether it's what kind of gym shoes, if I bought gym shoes right now, it'd be Chuck Taylors. You know,
Right.
um, the way I dress, the way right when I was like 6, 7 years old, I still like to this day. Uh, it's not loyalty to brands, just what I like, and I can't be bought with money. And the more I realize, the
So
more
you
older I
still
get,
derive importance from the stuff that you held dear as a child.
yeah. And I noticed that I'm becoming less and less materialistic. You know what I mean? Like, like the idea of being a multimillionaire and having houses everywhere to me is a headache. It wouldn't be. Why would you be worried about this? I just want just cleanliness, honesty, and that's it, man. Just people being upfront and honest with each other, and I feel like I learned that I was always like that, and now I feel like it's something to really want to be known for, you know? Because when I say something, I don't like lying. I feel like if you lie, you demean yourself. You make yourself in my head. If I lied to somebody, if I was lying to you about something or bragging or making up something just to
Yeah,
make
you
myself
feel
seem cool,
terrible
yeah,
afterwards.
yeah, I would feel like, man, you're pathetic, dude. Like you were telling that dude all that stuff just to make it. I mean, that's
Yeah.
so lame, you know.
Hmm.
And having just being good to people, you know, just treating people the way they deserve. But if somebody's a dickhead and tries to be does something bad to you,
You're
you
gonna
got to come
call him
at him
out on it.
hard, huh?
You're gonna call him out on it. You're
Oh
gonna
yeah, yeah, yeah. You got to
expose
call him out. I'll call him out big time, man. And I will confront. You know what I mean? I will like slap somebody that deserves it. You know?
Mm-hmm. But lastly, anything you'd like to say to your fans?
Just wait till you hear the next album, album number 4. I mean, because this album, like, I mean, just put it on if you're in a mood for just, it's short enough, like the classic albums, like, Back in Black or all those albums that were like about 35 minutes long, and and just blast it and see if you're playing your guitar to it too, or just like, yeah, yeah, yeah.